You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again, and man, today we have another amazing show lined up for y'all today. We have a special guest, man. Today, we're going to talk to Barrett Matthews, Dr. Barrett Matthews. He has an amazing website, MediaBossPodcast.com. He also has an amazing podcast, Media Boss Podcast. Man, today's subject, man, we want to explore an amazing topic that I think y'all will really have fun with and separate yourself from the rest in your field. Man, not only is Mr. Matthews a speaker, an author, but he's also a coach. He's been involved in all formats of media. I want to welcome you to the show, sir, and say how you doing.
Oh, man, glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. So, man, before we get all started in today's topic, kind of give the audience a little bit of background of how you got involved in media.
Well, it actually started in college. I started out, I went to Hampton University. I started out as an architecture major, which kicked my butt up and down the place. And I knew I had to change my major. Didn't know what to go into. And my sister said to me, well, you've always been interested in television and radio and writing. And I thought, well, wasn't everybody interested in television and radio? But I switched to that. I didn't know it could be a major in media. I honestly didn't. And I switched to mass media arts, and my grade shot up, and I was having fun. I got to do some things that was just, it was cool. I got to, write for the school newspaper. I got to host a post-game TV show. I got to be the sportscaster for the news show that we did. I was heavily into sports. I actually would call the games on the radio, which was cool because back then, if your audience is familiar with Kevin Frazier of Entertainment Tonight, we were in college together at one point. We used to call games together. And then I became the sports director for the radio station. And it was just a lot of fun. And I started doing internships with local TV stations down in Virginia. And I got to do an internship in Washington, D.C. at WUSA TV. And there I met a man who would become a mentor of mine, which everyone knows on CBS as James Brown. And he was at that time, he was just a weekend sportscaster and just a little freelance work for CBS at the time. And he kind of took me under his wing and helped me out a great deal, gave me opportunities. When I got out of college, he put in a word for me to help me get a job. And my first job was assistant director at the news station. And then he asked me, would I be interested in moving up to New York with CBS Sports? And I took a position up there in production. And I'm not going to lie, I got a little sour taste in my mouth from CBS, but I got out of the media for a while. But no matter what I did, it kept calling me back in. So I ended up doing, in more of today's age, doing more of online radio and some online streaming and television. And my production skills kind of took over so that no matter what I did, I knew how to produce content. And I started then just saying, you know what, I'm going to start teaching this to other people so they can use it for their business, because since I started to now, media has evolved immensely.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our special guest today, Dr. Barrett Matthews. And man, you are a media boss, man. Like you just kind of gave us a little illustration of just a little snippet of what you've done in your career. And media is a big deal. It helps brands, it helps cultures and communities come together and just learn about different topics and just different opportunities. And with your expertise, you've been able to, like you said moments ago, you've been able to meet some powerful public figures. How important is it because you touched on it, how important is it for companies and brands to really embrace the opportunity of being a media boss?
Well, in today's world, man, I think it's essential. Here's the thing. Like, for instance, we're using media right now. Everybody, and I mean everybody, consumes information through one form of media or another. Whether you're watching TV, listening to podcasts, reading newspaper, books, whatever, social media, you're getting your content through one form of media or another. Now, what I consider being a media boss is someone who is capturing various forms of media at the same time. And the reason I say that is because if you focus just on, say, a podcast and you have a business, yeah, you may have a large following of people who love listening to your podcast. But I would venture to say that there are a lot more people out there that don't listen to podcasts that would still love to be your client. But if you don't put yourself out there where they can consume their media, you're missing them. So I say if you go to various platforms, your audience is still out there. They just consume their media through different ways. So when you can do that, that's what I consider being a media boss. And I always joke and I use the idea of Kevin Hart, the comedian Kevin Hart. And I tell people, I don't care if you think Kevin Hart is funny or not, but you're not going to ignore Kevin Hart because he's everywhere. He has books, he has podcasts, he has audio books, he has streaming TV shows, streaming TV movies, he has feature films. He's everywhere. You're not going to ignore him. And he does that by design. And I say this to people because why aren't you everywhere? When you can do what he's done, that's what he's not famous and wealthy just on talent and alone. He put himself out there purposely. He had a plan to put himself out there. And when you can do that for your business, you'll get results too. You might not be Kevin Hart, but you'll get results.
And with today's topic, exploring separate yourself from the rest in your field, that's a perfect segue because what does it really take for an individual to really kind of stick out from the noise? I mean, obviously be yourself, but what are some of the best practices to professionally present yourself in different formats of media?
Great question. One thing I say is find out what everybody else is doing and do something different. Don't necessarily have to be the opposite, but different. And you have to learn to think differently. Read things that people don't normally read. Listen to people that people don't normally listen to, so that you can get ideas and expand your mind on how you can think differently. I met with a billionaire some years ago, Michael Roberts, who got wealthy in hotels and radio. And I said to him at that time, I said, I have to learn to start thinking outside the box. And he looked me dead in the eye and said, why are you in a box? And all I could do was just be quiet and think. I said, God, I guess I put myself in that box. So at that moment, I stopped using that phrase. And I said, I have to think differently and stop being in a box. Just think differently than other people. And when you can do that, you can find yourself standing out from other people. People going to call you names. People going to say stuff about you. That's fine. But people that do great things, that's always said about them. That's always said, you shouldn't do that. Oh, that's crazy. Why are you doing that? That always happens to people. One of my friends, he said something to me years ago, and I never forgot it. And we were talking about football. And for those of you who know the game of football, you'll understand what I'm saying here. But he asked the question, what's the job of an NFL wide receiver? And I said, to catch the ball, score touchdowns. And he said, no. The job of an NFL wide receiver is to get separation. He said, I could throw you the ball, you could catch it. You could take the ball and run it to the end zone. But can you get separation from a defensive back that runs a 4.25 40? Yeah. He said, that's the job of NFL wide receiver. No matter how good we say Jerry Rice is, Jerry Rice can't get separation from those guys anymore. That's why Jerry Rice ain't in the league. And a lot of those guys, when they can't get separation, they don't have use for them. They'll find someone else who's faster, who's younger, who can get that separation. Same thing applies to you in business. You have to get separation from other people, which means you got to be different than them. Yeah, you may have a similar product, you may have a similar service, then you have to find a way to make it so that you're different. I mean, McDonald's and Burger King both sell burgers, but they don't sell the same type of burger. And that's done by design. Burger King wanted to get separation from McDonald's. Chick-fil-A wanted to get separation from the rest of them. So it's the thing is, what are you going to do in your business to make it so that people see you for who you are and they don't see you as just one of the crowd?
We're listening to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Dr. Barrett Matthews, and you can go to his website. His website is MediaBossPodcast.com. And today's subject, man, we're all about just finding that way to separate yourself from the rest in your field. And with that, when people are exploring their starting point, someone who's out of touch, they never been a participant of media, but they always consumed it. Based on your experience, what is a good place for people to kind of explore and begin that journey?
That's another great question. What we're doing right now, podcasting. The reason I always tell people to start with podcasting is because if it's something you love, something you're passionate about, whatever it is, it's easy for you to sit down and talk about it. Easy, because it's something you love. Well, if you just talk about it and you hit record, you got yourself a podcast. It's that simple. And then you can, start exploring other areas of media, but it's easy to start a podcast. You just got to sit down and talk about something you love.
And when you work with clients, in the media industry world, everyone is focused on growth. That's kind of why they're there. They want to find ways to market. They want to find ways to find new clients.
Yeah.
When you use media, for a beginner, someone who wants to use it for their business and their brand, what are some fundamental building blocks that they can use to make sure that they can measure their progress as they are attempting to tap into the media world?
Well, that's good. One thing is if you're going to tie, I'd suggest tying whatever you're using to some type of CRM so that you can see how many people are connecting with you, even with your website, to find out how many people are listening to you. If you have a blog, which is also another form of media, you can see how many people are reading your blog. With the podcast, you can measure it by the downloads. Now, you can also, with social media, engage with people, which I highly recommend. Engage with people, ask them questions about, what they think. Get them to engage. Start a community on social media. Get people to engage in your community, and you can find out how many people are really interested in what you're doing and what you're saying. Now, once you can find out who's interested in those things, you can comment about more. Then you can start working on maybe offering something that you want to sell to them. I always tell people, you want to first, a friend of mine, he put it this way. He said this, IAM. First, you want to get their information. Then you want them to take an action. Then you want to go ask for money. But if you get it out of order, you mess up your profits. So in this regard, when you're on any type of media platform, you want to give them information and get their information. Find a way to get their information, because that's the best way to track it. If they filled out a landing page that they want something from you, then guess what? You at least know they have an interest. It could be something you give them for free, but at least you know they have an interest in your content. Then you can start talking to them more and nurture them with more content and so forth. So then you can start working on something later if you want to sell something to them. But when it comes to media, you have to nurture it, and you can keep track as you go. I understand this one thing, very important. It's not going to happen overnight, especially if you are someone new, as you asked. If you're someone new, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to be patient. I have a friend right now. He has a podcast that just today went over 600,000 downloads.
Wow.
And he said he started it about 2 years ago. He said for a good year and a half, they were very low downloads. Then all of a sudden it started shooting up. And the more the momentum grew, it kept growing and growing and growing to now it's just blown up the way he's got over 600,000 downloads. And understand that he said most people don't have the patience to put up with now that's not saying you're going to get 600,000 downloads, but most people don't have the patience to wait till they can get to 5,000 downloads. And you have to just get to that point and understand that downloads to me is not as important as impact. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have 500 downloads and know that I got 200 out of those people that are my clients. I'd rather do that than to have 500, 600,000 downloads that just listen to me. I want to make an impact on somebody's life. I want to be able to impact my business as well. So there's ways to track it, but you got to understand why you're tracking it too.
And that's a good point. When people are on the podcast fever, because people are saying it's the next website, it's the next space for you to really put yourself out there further than, your social media profiles. When people are making these shows and making these contents, what are some of the best practices when someone's making a call to action? Is it simply, hey, follow me on blah, blah, blah? Or is it gradually just trying to figure out who's listening and then kind of fine tune your call to action?
Well, I think it depends on your audience. And what I mean by that is that if you have an audience that is consistently listening to you, always engaging with you, wants more content, it's okay to just say, hey, I have this for you. If you want it, you can have this right here. But you can also offer a way for people to connect with you without costing them anything. So now you can get them in your pipeline. And that's still a call to action. You just want them to take the action to get into your pipeline. You could offer them something free. You can let them know you have an event coming up if they want to attend. You can give them something as a gift for taking an action. But it really varies. It depends on what type of audience you have. And you would know that when you do your podcast, you would know if they're the type that, that want something. And it depends on your topic. It depends on your topic for your podcast. So if you're doing a podcast that is based on sales, then I suggest that you sell them something.
Right. Once again, man, listen, I'm Refocus Radio talking to Dr. Barrett Matthews. And man, today's topic we've been discussing, separate yourself from the rest in your field. So someone listening right now and they're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my new year, new me type thing. We're going to make this happen. For an action step, for homework for them to do, whoever's listening to this right now, what is a good first step for someone who is totally brand new to all this, and maybe they should go to your website and click on something? What's the first step that they should take to start that process?
And I know this is going to sound kind of cheesy. Start. Whatever it is, start. Don't worry about failing. Just start. There are so many people, and I'm sure you know about this too, Jamai. There's so many people right now who say every day, I'm going to start a podcast, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
They have all types of excuses they give themselves as to why they haven't started that podcast. Just start. You're going to mess up. I know I've messed up. I know I still make mistakes. I know you've messed up. We all mess up. It's okay. You learn and you get better at it. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But I would rather mess up and do it than to keep telling myself I'm going to do it if I get this in place, if I got that in place. So the best advice I have for people is start and just do something. Do something towards starting your podcast. Trust me, you a year later, you may look at something you did and laugh at it, but it's okay. It's okay, because understand this, and then please listen to this, guys, that people don't want you to be perfect.
Yeah.
They don't want you to be perfect. You're thinking you need to be perfect. They don't want you to be perfect because they want to know you're human.
Yep.
Because guess what? They're human. And if you don't seem human to them, they can't relate to you. They can't relate to you. They're not going to stay listening to your podcast long. So I just say, just start, make mistakes and all. Just start, and you'll figure the rest out as you go.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying, because it ties back with the topic, the key word, separate. And that's an action. That's not a passive way of thinking.
Exactly.
You have to actually act on it. So someone like yourself, you've been in this field professionally. You've been able to meet some very influential people. What are some of the common threads that you've been able to gather from people you've been able to be exposed to, as far as how they've been able to grow their business and just grow their brand? What are some of the things you've been able to notice, if there's been any kind of pattern of common thread?
That is that people work harder than people give them credit for. Like I said, I've worked with quite a few famous people in media, and these people work at what they do harder than people give them credit for. James Brown, for example, I remember working with James Brown. He was taking classes on just his diction, how to speak well. And he would do exercises all the time just to work on what he did. A lot of people wouldn't think that, but that's what he did because he wanted to make sure that he was on point. And a lot of people are willing to put in the work. We say we want the result, but we're not willing to put in the work. And that's what he did to make sure that he was able to provide the type of broadcasting that we all have, come to know and love. So I would say that that's a common thread I see, is that a lot of them are willing to work. They'll put in late nights. They'll do whatever they have to do to get the job done. And they sacrifice time with their friends, with their family. You got to be, in order to separate yourself, you have to separate yourself physically from a lot of things in life too. And that's one of the things a lot of people, the common thread I've noticed that people are willing to do. It gets frowned upon by a lot of people who are close to them because they want them to stay the way they are. But you can't do those things if you want to separate yourself. You have to do something different if you want to be different.
Man, that's it right there. I mean, that was the perfect slam dunk right there. Talking to Dr. Barrett Matthews here on Army Focus Radio. And man, before we close, when people listen to this episode, man, and they want to get to know you more, obviously they can go to your website, mediabosspodcast.com. But real quick, your podcast that you do, I know that's not the only thing you do, but what's some of the content that you kind of cover on your show and platform?
What I cover on the show is how you can become a media boss by using various forms of media. I bring on people there who do different things in media, whether they do podcasting, books, film. We've had some actors on there as well, whether they do live streaming, marketing, digital marketing, branding, all these things that are associated with the media that they put out for your business. And my point I just want to drive home to people on my podcast is that the more media you can incorporate, the more people you can reach. And the more people you can reach, the more revenue you can bring in.
And do you offer opportunities for people to kind of get coached up a little bit if they want to reach out to you and say, hey, how do I start with the podcast? Are there opportunities where people can reach out to you and get some help?
Well, what I do, I actually have a challenge I do. It's called the Make Money from Media Challenge. And I put on the challenge, and there's one coming up soon. And what it is a 5-day challenge to go over all those forms of media I spoke on. It's not all day long. It's like a couple hours each day for 5 days. And we go over all those forms of media to make sure that people can understand how they can set this up for themselves. And also, I tell people, if you don't want to set up for yourself, we can actually, I have a team in place that can help you. We can do it for you. But I tell people, if I'm going to do it for you, first thing I'm going to do is earn the right to even ask you for that by showing you how to do it yourself.
Man, that's awesome. Man, I wish I had this when I first started in 2017. So y'all out there listening, y'all have like an easy cheat code right now because he's basically making it a lot easier for you. And with the new year, what is one exercise practice that someone can take away to kind of keep themselves motivated to stay consistent for the rest of this year so they don't find themselves kind of hot one day and then cold for the rest of the time?
Call yourself out on all the excuses you give yourself. Stop giving yourself excuses. What we always say, I'm going to do this, but take the buts out, man. Just go ahead and do what you have to do. Whatever it is in your life, just do it. Stop giving yourself a way out. Stop giving yourself an excuse. There's no reason for you not to be successful except for you got in your own way. So whatever it is that you said you were going to do, because I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions because I think it's just bogus. Yeah. But whatever you said you were going to do it. Do it. Don't, there's no, and look, stop saying your kids are the reason why. Your kids should be the reason why you do it, not because that don't do it. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is, get rid of the excuses. The excuses are what gets in our way and holds us up for the things that we really know we should be doing.
Man, man, another slam dunk, because that's everything we've been talking about, is separate yourself from the rest in your field. You have to separate yourself from your excuses and from every distraction that is basically keeping you from making that progress. Man, it's been great having you on, Dr. Barrett Matthews. Y'all can visit his website, mediabosspodcast.com. And I always tell people like yourself, you make it look easy, but I do understand that it takes a lot of work and commitment. If you can give someone advice to not quit on what they started, because that's the tone I'm getting from you, what would you tell that individual?
Have a why. Have a why that's bigger than you. Whatever it is that you're doing, make it the reason why you're doing it, make it bigger than you. If it's bigger than you, you won't quit, because it has nothing to do with you. If like I said, if you have kids, do it for your kids. Would you quit on your kids? Mm. If your parents need you to do it, would you quit on your parents? Make your why bigger than you. If it's bigger than you, then you can't quit on them.
That's some good stuff. Y'all need to rewind the tape or just scroll back and listen to that point again. Man, once again, y'all can go check out his podcast, check out his shop, his blog, his episodes, everything. Just go mediabosspodcast.com. I want to say thanks again to you, Dr. Barrett Matthews, for taking time in your schedule, talking to I Am Refocused Radio today, man.